Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 367 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron. So happy that you are here with me today as I am talking to David Ellis. I recorded this one a ways back, but I wanted to hold it until his paperback was coming out, which is right about now. And I loved this interview with him. He talks about how to surprise the reader. And let me tell you, he knows a thing or two about surprising the reader. I absolutely loved his book, Look Closer. So we're going to be talking about that. Stick around for that. You're not going to want to miss it. And what's going on around here? Well, I have just been steadily working. And oh my goodness, it feels great. I worked hard for probably too long on the how to publish class, and that took time away from my writing. And I hated that. And now I'm back, arms deep in the work, and it feels great. I am working on fixing the book that is called The Fix. It is, as I've mentioned many times on here before, it is my recovery memoir. It's on my agent's desk. And what I'm doing right now is I am revising the first 20% of it to my agent's recommendations and specifications and I was really not happy about even trying to do that. And then I thought about it. And then I thought, well, you know what? It is a method that I have not tried with this book because I already had it, developmentally edited. It was ready to go, I thought. But it comes back to this idea that I talk about a lot, which is everybody who looks at your book is going to have a different idea for it. If you hire 100 editors, unfortunately, you will get 100 great ideas about how to completely transform the book you've probably already worked on and transformed 5 or 6 times yourself. So you can either reject what people say because they're not good ideas, or if you have an agent who's smart and she brings you a good idea, you get really angry about it for a while and throw a little fit and just put it in the corner and say to your agent, fine, I'll think about that and I'll get back to you. And months and months and months and months and months, dare I say almost a year, I don't even want to look it up, have gone by. And I'm finally getting around to doing this. So I'm revising the first 20,000-ish words because she wants to take it out on proposal, which means the whole book doesn't have to be revised to match that yet. And then I will also write the memoir book proposal, which is a big ordeal. And she and I will work on making that good. And I'm sure that she will have some great ideas, which will annoy me greatly with the revision I do for the first third of the book. No, it's not the first third, first quarter of the book. And then she will take it out. And then if she sells it, great. And if she doesn't, then I will self-publish it, just like Seven Miracles. Same attitude about it. And I have to tell you, it's been working well. The book had been a little bit segmented, and she asked me to smooth some bits to fit them together. They had been resting next to each other, and she wants to weave them together, which is not freaking easy with what I'm dealing with. And in the last few weeks of doing this, it's going well, and the book is better for it. Gosh darn it. So I have been doing that in all of my deep work time of writing. But I also wanted to share something with you that I've shared with my classes this week that has kind of knocked my socks off. It is an update on my 500 word a day challenge that I gave to myself back in February. I think I started February 10th because I track things in Pacemaker, which is an app that I love. And I can see in there that I started this 500 word a day challenge on February 10th. And I wanted to do it for the rest of the year. And what I do is I just show up in the morning. It's the first thing, pretty much almost the very, very first thing that I do is I sit down and I start writing 500 words. I have been super enjoying lately using Cold Turkey Writer, which is brand new to me. And basically it turns your computer, I may have mentioned this before, but it turns your computer into a typewriter. You tell it how many words you want to write or how long you want to write, and then all functionality is switched off. And I don't think there's a way to jailbreak it. You could probably crash your computer, turn it off to get out of it. But I can't find a way to cheat my way out of it, especially the way I do it, which I either set the timer, which is not like me. I like a word count, but I set the timer for 15 or 20 minutes. And I don't spend any more time doing it because the timer, I really can't cheat. If I set it for 500 words and I just get bored and want to get out and want to stop and do something else and check my email or do something that I've decided is dreadfully important, all I would have to do is just copy and paste the word hello 500 times and I'm out. I'm broken. But if you put the time in, then I'm just sitting there for 15 or 20 minutes. And usually the only thing I do first is I take the dog outside. And then usually I hope that she comes back in and curls up at my feet. And if I move, if I go anywhere, if I walk away from the computer, she will wake up and then I'll have to take care of her. So I'm really stuck at the computer, which doesn't do anything but type. And I write something. I write whatever I want. I'm nominally writing this book on writing. Very nominally. I haven't really committed to anything, or I don't know what that book is doing. I'm also writing some other memoir style stuff. I play around with some Patreon essay ideas. I write about my feelings. It's not a journal, it's actual writing, but it's whatever I want. And here's the thing. I looked at Pacemaker the other day. I looked at it today. I redid the math since I talked to my students. I have 37,379 words. I have more than 37,000 words written in what feels like absolutely no time. I started mid-February. It's only June. And here's what's going to blow your mind. So my goal was 500 words daily, right? That's the challenge. That's what I would like. And I also know I am not a high discipline person. I don't follow through with my goals. I complete a lot of things. I finish a lot of things and I hit goals eventually, but I don't ever follow exactly the goals that I set. And I'm okay with that. That's part of what writing is. And that's what I love to help people understand, is that writing is about letting yourself down over and over and over again and continually being kind and rewarding yourself and being proud of the work that you do end up doing. So I have 37,000 words written of whatever it is I'm writing. Some of them are really good. Some of them are crap because it's first drafting words, but some of them are really good. And if you're good at math, you can see where I'm going with this. Since February 10th, there have been 124 days. It has been 124 days since February 10th when I started, as I record this on June 15th, 2023. I have only written on 57 of them. I've only shown up to do my 500 words daily. I only do daily-ish. I don't even do daily-ish. I've only done 57 out of 124 days, which is only 45% of the time have I actually sat down and done what I wanted to do. I have failed 55% of the time, which is honestly fine. I don't write Sundays, even though I always think that I would like to write those 500 words on Sundays. I don't. I go to an early morning meeting and I don't get to the page. I tell myself I will write on Saturdays, and then I usually don't because I like to tell myself I don't have to write today, so I don't. So Saturdays usually fall out. I like to tell myself I'm going to write on Wednesdays, which is the day that I teach. And I normally don't because my brain is mush afterwards and I don't get up early enough to do everything I need to do before I start teaching and get the 500 words written. So I've already lost Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays to my daily writing. Plus, I usually skip another day in there because I'm doing something else, or the dog really needs a walk, or I just don't want to, or I have a migraine, or whatever. I am doing this I am succeeding at this goal less than 45% of the time, to write for 15 minutes on bonus words. These are bonus words. They're not like my deep work. They're not whatever big project I'm working on. They're bonus words. They're fun words. They're just play. So I play for 15 or 20 minutes. Usually I get between 600 and 800 words written during that time, but I only need or want 500. And I think Pacemaker said my average daily sit down and enter into the computer is 652. So even though my goal is 500, if I write for 15 minutes or 20, I get 652 as my average that I put in. And that adds up to 37,000 bloody words. Can you believe that? Like, that blows my mind. If I go at this rate, I will have more than 90,000 words written by the end of the year just by playing for 15 minutes a day and not doing good work. I can't do much in 652 words a day. And I usually stop right in the middle of something. And the next day I go back and I think, should I expand this? Should I keep going? Sometimes I do. And sometimes I go, no, I'd like to write about kale. I haven't actually written about kale. I just looked out and saw kale in the garden, but I could if I wanted to. And it's just been so fun and so cool and so liberating. And I can't recommend it highly enough, especially if you're going to fail at it bunches of times and you'll still get work done. When you hear 500 words a day and you think, oh, and I won't do it all the time. You think maybe I'll have, 4,000 words, 5,000 words. No, you will turn around and have half of a book written and you had no idea. I hadn't even been looking at, to be very honest with you, in Pacemaker, the place where it shows the number of words you've written for your current project is very, very small and it's white on bright green. So with my eyesight, I couldn't even see it. I leaned in and squinted at it this week, and that's why I'm so shocked by it. I had no clue and I hadn't done any of the math. So anyway, that's exciting to me. That's what's been going on around here. All right, let me give you a little bit of a bio for David. And I want you to then jump into this interview with both feet because and also just go grab the book. Seriously. David Ellis is a judge and an Edgar-award-winning author of 10 novels of crime fiction, as well as 8 best-selling books co-authored with James Patterson. His novels have been translated into more than 10 languages worldwide. In December 2014, Dave was sworn in as the youngest serving justice of the Illinois Appellate Court for the First District. He lives outside Chicago with his wife and 3 children. Look Closer is his latest release, and you're going to love it. All right, here's the interview. Please enjoy, my friends. Please get some writing done and come tell me about it. We'll talk soon. Here we go. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
My name is David Ellis. He, him, his.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am so thrilled to talk to you because I loved your book, your most recent book, Look Closer. It was fantastic.
Well, thanks. It was a crazy book to write, and I think it was, from what I'm getting from feedback, it was a crazy book to read.
Yes.
And so many people say some version of what the hell did I just read? And I sometimes said that to myself, Rachel, when I was writing, like, what the hell did I just write? Like, am I actually going to do this? Am I going to try to do this? And but I kept taking chances, and it was by far the most fun I've ever had writing a book. And I've written a lot of books, but it's by far the most fun I've ever had.
So we'll talk a little bit about what it's about and all of that. But what made this fun? What was different about it?
Well, one thing was that was one of the goals of mine.
Yeah.
I took a little bit of time off of writing my own books. I've been writing with James Patterson, and I took several years off. I had a little bit of a spat with my publisher and walked away for really like 6 or 7 years. And then COVID hit. And the only blessing of COVID from my perspective is that I was home all the time, and my wife said, if you're ever going to write another book, now is the time, one of your own books. And I knew how much I missed it. And given how crappy that pandemic was, I said, you know what, this book is going to be fun. I've always blanched at the idea of writing a beach read. I've always said, no, my books are, more sophisticated than that. And I think this book is sophisticated, but on one level, I wanted to say, if you want a beach read, this is a beach read too. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just going to keep twisting the ground beneath you and make you think one thing and then completely change your thinking maybe 30 pages later, and just keep doing that until the book's done and you're dizzy from all the head spinning. And I thought that's what I like, like when I'm watching a show, like nowadays, right? Nowadays, it's most of the stuff you watch is streamed, and it's like 7 or 8 episodes. And the really good ones are the ones that just keep you jumping around. And I thought, I want to do that in a book. And so I said, this is going to be fun. That's going to be my number one goal, was to make it fun. And it was fun to write. I think it's fun to read.
I had one of those awesome experiences with it, in that Susanna, actually, our shared agent, sent a copy to me, and I threw it in my bag as I took myself away on a solo writers retreat, which really means a solo readers retreat, because that's what I do. But I do a lot of writing, but most reading. And so it was a beach read for me. I was on a little tiny house on the edge of a cliff in one of the biggest storms I have ever weathered, on the edge of a cliff. And I just read it from, started it that morning and finished in the afternoon. And it was
really
divine. It was one of those immersive, we don't get those very often in our busy lives, but it was just immersive. Except when the building would shake, I forgot where I was. I was so into it. It just drew
Well,
me in. And
thank
I
you.
read all of the thrillers that I can. Um, and it takes a lot to shake me up, to surprise me. And you did it. So I
That was
loved it.
my goal. And I always say, Rachel, it's not a fair fight because I get to rewrite. As you know, I
Yeah.
get to do all the rewriting I want. So, but I do think of it. I thought of this book the whole time as a game that the reader willingly enters with me. And I
Yep.
know most readers are pretty sharp and they'll pick up on things. And sometimes I'd let them pick up on something that they weren't supposed to, but I'll go ahead and let them do that and lead them down a path. And there's a lot of red herrings in this book, and but it is a game. I mean, ultimately, in any of these mysteries or suspense thrillers, you want it. I think there needs to be that element, the cat and mouse and the fun. And at least that's what I like. And I'm old enough and I've written enough books to know that you got to write what you like, because if
Yeah.
you don't like it, no one else will.
Yeah. And that is one of my favorite, most delicious parts of reading is when I think to myself, oh, this poor writer doesn't know how smart I am and how I've already figured it out. And then it twists and you realize you did it. You did it. You didn't figure it out. You were wrong. The writer is better. And yeah, it was so fun. So thank you for that. I would like to
Well,
talk to you
good.
about your process, the when and the where and the how. First of all, what does your day look like? I know you get up early. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I try to get up every morning at 3:30
Mhm.
a.m. And these days it's getting harder. But so from 3:30 to about 7, I just am a writer. And that's, I might have to, my daughter is now in high school. She's getting up earlier, but with a few
Darn her.
interruptions, sorry.
Darn her.
Yeah, right. She gets up at 6 o'clock and throws off my groove. But yeah, but that's basically all my time right there. And then then I have to share with being a judge. I've got a full-time day job that's very important and very important to me. And so the only time that's pure writing time, I just say 3:30 to 7. I'm not going to answer email. I'm not going to work on my judicial work. I'm just going to be a writer. And sometimes I can squeeze in other time during the day. If I've just finished a judicial opinion, for example, and I'm not ready to just jump into the next case, I might take an hour and work. I've got a little office in the that's nice and dark and cool, and I like to be fairly dark when I write,
Mhm.
because my writing is a little bit on the dark side, and that's a nice vibe. I try to put on some music, but the music does not always match what I'm doing. But I've got some like heavier stuff that I listen to, and I've got some really mellow stuff, and I've got some really emotional stuff. And sometimes I will say, okay, I'm about to write an emotional scene. So put on your emotional music that's more,
Yes.
some people might even say it's kind of cheesy, but it's emotional. And I
It
sometimes
works. Yeah.
I have a playlist I call Feel. And I just want to feel that emotion and kind of have it gurgle up inside me a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so then you go to the job and then you're not a night
Yeah.
writer because you've got kids after about 3:30ish, right?
Yeah, once the kids come home, I can do my job I'm on the Court of Appeals in Illinois. I'm on the Illinois Appellate Court, which means I don't hear cases every day with people coming in front of me. That's not how
Mhm.
it works. I get the appeals.
Mhm.
So I can do my job remotely. And
Mm,
since COVID, a lot of the appellate judges have been almost exclusively remote. I
mm.
get the record from the trial court digitally. I write my opinions, of course. I just do that on a laptop. I can talk to my clerks by Zoom, like I'm talking to you, or we'll call each other. So I go in a couple days a week, but several days a week I just stay home. Yeah, it's you cut down on the commute, and frankly I'm more productive.
Do you separate where you write from where you do the day job?
No, I don't
It's the
even separate
same
the
seat,
computer.
same computer?
Same
Wow.
computer. I'm talking to you on the laptop that I write my books and I write my judicial opinions.
So at 7 a.m., you go upstairs, presumably get another cup of coffee, and then go downstairs and just put on put on the virtual robes and
Yeah,
sit there
yeah.
and do that. Yeah.
I get the kids off to school. My wife is a working mom too. So we tag team on all that stuff. And then, maybe about 8 o'clock, it's time to be a judge. Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
consider yourself a speedy first draft writer, or are you where does your
No.
time lie between first draft and revision?
Boy, I am not fast. And I've learned that. And my wife finally had to actually say it to me. You just got to face the fact, Dave, you're not fast. After I wrote Look Closer, And again, as I said, for several years, almost a decade, I had stopped writing my own books. And so I was writing Patterson books and being a judge and being a dad. And now it's back to, you got your own books again. And now they're like, okay, when's the next one coming out? We want to put out the next one in a year from now. I'm like, I got to write this in a year. And my books don't write in a year. And I'm, to specifically answer your question, Rachel, I mean, some people blast through a first draft and then do a second draft. I revise as I go, and I don't recommend it, but I can't let go of a chapter until I'm happy with it. So I'll obsess over it and keep rewriting that chapter until I like it. And sometimes I'll go back yet again, but it's not like I finish the whole book and then I do draft 2. I do go back when it's over and tweak it, but it's, by then it's pretty much baked. Like I do the work. I do multiple drafts as I go. And so it's probably not the most efficient way to do it. And, Patterson would laugh at me. He does laugh at me for how I write my own books, because it's very different than what I do with Jim. But it's what I do at this point. And so I said to my publisher, I'm not going to do a book a year. I don't think I'm going to work that fast. It's just not going to happen. I just, if I'm gonna turn out my best product, which I was very proud of Look Closer. I feel like that was I was really happy with it. And I said, if I'm going to do that again, it's not going to be in a year. So 18 months, 2 years, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, what I hear and what I love is that you know your process, you respect your process. And I always like to point out, for maybe the new listener who has never heard me preach on about this, but there are not very many writers who can revise as they go and complete good books that they're proud of. You can. So that is your process. What I see a lot is the newer writer who spends, 4 years revising the first 4 chapters and never gets to the end. You know how to get to the end successfully with a product that you're proud of. And I would give anything to be that kind of writer, because I'm the opposite. I'm the fast draft writer, and I just write a mess. And then that feels unproductive to me to go back and have to, tear everything apart. So, it's the grass is always greener.
But it's not. I mean, I actually wish I could do that, Rachel. I can't. I'm not choosing to do it this way. It's the only way I know how to do it, the only way that makes sense to me.
And it works.
Maybe when I was younger, when I was newer and younger, but more importantly, when I was a newer writer, because I didn't take any writing classes. I just taught myself how to write. And I just knew what I liked to read. When I first started, I was doing that more, and I think I'm getting much more demanding now. I feel like when I'm done with a chapter, I'm saying somehow to myself, it's good enough to print right now. And so I won't let go of it until I feel like it's good enough to print. And I'm sure a lot of people would say, just write it and fix it later. And I don't do that. I kind of wish that I could. It's probably more efficient.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is more efficient.
Yeah. But it might be the straight hair versus curly hair thing. We're always going to want the thing that we can't do, that we don't do. You're getting to the end product of an excellent book. So that is what matters. What is your most challenging part of writing?
My most challenging part of writing is fighting my impatience, because I always want to get to the next big thing and the next big plot twist, the next big thing I know is coming up. And I sometimes am too impatient to properly set a scene. And I don't like it when people overdo that and spend, 6 paragraphs describing the scene, or I don't need 3 paragraphs on the color of the couch, tell me what the color is and let's move on. But I wish that I did it. That is actually, if there's anything that I do in my second draft that we'll call it, it's that I add a little atmosphere, because I appreciate atmosphere, but I'm always like, I'm an impatient reader and I'm an impatient writer. And so I'll think, I should set this up right now. I should set up what it smells like in here and what the colors are. And no, I don't want to. I'll just go right to my thing. And I'll be like, well, then go back and do it later. I'll put a little asterisk to note, atmosphere or something. That's what I wish I did more of and did better.
It sounds like you're doing it in a way, and it's working, but I do appreciate that challenge. What is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Oh, my biggest joy, I think, is when I have those breakthroughs on plot, when I realize I can do something that's going to be really cool. And because I like those surprises. I mean, you try to you want your book to be everything, right, Rachel? You want the prose to be outstanding, and you want the characters to be compelling. And I want all of that too. I love it when I fall in love with a character. That's really fun for me. But ultimately, if my single favorite thing is when you have that wow moment in a plot. You're like, I'm going to set it up this way, and it's going to be this, and no one's going to see it coming if I do it right. And that is really enjoyable to me, because it's really enjoyable to me to experience as a reader or a watcher of a show or something.
Yeah.
And so that's my number one.
Where do you place yourself on the plotter pantser spectrum?
Well, I would like to outline as much as possible beforehand. What I used to say is, like the lawyer that I am, when you work a case as a lawyer and you're going to trial, when you begin to when you get anywhere near time for trial, the first thing that you do is you write your closing argument. And that is what you want to be able to tell the jury. And then you build your whole case about how to make sure you have all the evidence and the information to tell the jury those things you want to say. So you start with the end and you work back. And what I used to do is I would start with the surprise ending in my head and then work backwards. And then, I'd know the beginning, the end, and the middle 300 pages would be a bit of a mystery to me. I'm trying to be more deliberative about saying, okay, I'll do this, and then let's have this happen. As much as I try to do that, I just know about myself that I can't, unlike a James Patterson who can do this, I can't plot out the whole book in my head before it happens. Once I start writing and these characters start growing, it just kind of pops. So I'll have a general idea of what I want to do. And Look Closer is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Some of the stuff I came up with, it came midstream, and I said, oh, I'm going to do this now, which means, of course, I'm going to have to go back and change some stuff, but not a lot. And it's going to be worth it. So I guess I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't just completely start and go by the seat of my pants. I think my plots are too complex to do that. That would take me 5 years to write because I'd keep changing things. So I do try to have some general idea of what the surprises will be, but I never get them all at the first draft. It's just too organic of a process for me.
Oh, that's so
What
fun.
about you? What do you do? How do you do it?
Well, I'm smiling because I'm basically the exact same as you. And that's, not always common, but I like to know. I'm a little bit different. I don't know the ending, but I usually know the beginning and the darkest moment. And I work toward the darkest moment. And then I have no idea how to get there, get to the darkest moment. And oftentimes if I have made it as dark as possible, I cannot finish my first draft. I get stuck because it's real dark. I can't work my way out of it. And it takes that first big revision for me to figure out how to get these people unstuck. So, but it's very similar.
You drive yourself into a brick wall and then try to figure out how to work.
And a nice thing about my process is that I used to spend 3 or 4 months banging my head against that brick wall trying to get to an end. And now it usually only takes about 2 weeks. And I realize again, oh, this is my process. I'm 80% done with the book. I just need to stop and start over. I am going to revise now. Still don't know what the end is, but I will, by the end of that first big revision, I will know it. It usually, you get the lightning bolt, the shower moment where you're like, oh, of course this. And I love those moments in writing where it feels like there was no other solution and you should have seen it all along. And when the reader gets there, they'll go, oh yeah, of course. But it's always frustrating that we couldn't see it until we could see it.
Yeah.
Until we drove around that corner and it's obvious.
Yeah. That's a really gutsy way to write, to know there's a really dark corner you're coming up to and you don't know how it's going to happen, but you just drive right to it. I think that can produce excellent fiction. And I think that's a really gutsy way to write. Did you ever, when you were, you're younger than me, I can tell, but
I don't
did
think
you
so.
ever
I think
watch
we're probably about the same age. I'm 50.
Okay, I got you by 5 years.
Okay.
So I know you don't live in America, but did you ever watch those cheesy old Batman TV shows like from like the 60s, like the reruns of it?
Yeah.
So there was a Batman that I just always laugh about where the Joker took Batman and Robin and held them over. He had them in like a little almost like a he was holding them over a barrel of acid. They were held by something that looked like something you'd sleep in your backyard or something. I can't think of
Yeah,
the
like
word.
a hammock. It's
Yeah, I'm
really,
sorry, that's it. Hammock.
it's in my head.
They're
I can see that
basically like in
image.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course, because it's a cheesy old Batman show, the Joker then leaves, right? He leaves them to die so they can get out of it. And so I'm sitting there, and this would be a dark quarter. It's a cheesy example, and I'm like, how on God's green earth are they going to get out of this? And Batman then threw his cape over his face, jumped into the acid, popped out, and Robin said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, luckily, Alfred, the butler, luckily, Alfred insisted I wear my acid-proof cape today." And I thought, at the time when I was probably like 8, I'm like, that's genius. And I
That
always
is
think of
8-year-old
that, because
genius.
of course that is a ridiculous plot twist, right? That
Yes.
just was the laziest thing for a plotter to do. Well, luckily I'm bulletproof and I didn't tell anybody, but I always think of that. You're always looking for the acid-proof cape, but you got to set up the acid-proof cape ahead of time.
Yes, that is a great, that's a great
I know
analogy.
it was hilarious. At the time, I thought it was brilliant.
And they hit their target market, they wanted the 8 to
Absolutely.
12-year-old kids to
Yeah.
think it was genius, and it worked, and we're still talking about it this much longer. Okay,
I know.
speaking of the craft of writing, do you have a craft tip that you can share with the audience?
Oh gosh. I guess my best craft tip would be, if you are stuck, just start writing.
Yeah.
Just start writing anything about the scene that could possibly come to your mind, and just always remember that no one's going to read it until you release it. You can change it. That's what I do when I get writer's block. If I've got a scene and I've got a couple characters in that scene and I don't know what to write yet, I just start thinking. I just say, okay, at this stage of the book, where are each of these characters? What are they thinking? And I might just start writing their inner thoughts. Like, I'm freaked out now because the cops think that I committed a murder. I'm not really sure what to do. And the other person is like, yeah, I kind of think this guy might be the killer, but I'm not really sure. And I just start writing that kind of stuff, like what they're thinking, or I just start having them talk. And suddenly it starts crystallizing. That is the best way to, it's a warm up. It gets the juices flowing. It's just start writing whatever you can think of to write, even if it seems off point. It will get you going, because I have had plenty of times where I've stared at a computer screen for an hour and a half and I keep talking myself out of something. I'll start to write, nope, that's no good. Nope, that's no good. Well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And I'll just sit there and think about it. And that's, we're the kind of people that, we're task-oriented people. We like to check boxes, and it's frustrating to stare at a computer for an hour and do nothing. So just start getting into the character's head at whatever point you are in the book, and just have them start thinking about things that are bothering them or that matter to them. And you may throw every bit of it out, but it will probably move you quicker into that scene than if you just stare at it. If you do nothing, you're going to get very little. If you start typing, you're usually going to produce something.
I love that, and the more we stare and think, the tighter we're getting. And as we are writing, the looser we're getting, and our brains are relaxing a little bit.
Right.
And that's when the ideas come for me. Yeah.
That is 100%. That's a very good way to put it. You start loosening up your muscles, and then suddenly you're moving again. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a trick we plan ourselves. I keep a little journal in each book. There's like I use Scrivener, so there's a journal file. And when I get stuck, I just start talking to myself or the characters. And then eventually I am talking. There's something in there that I could just copy and paste into the scene I want. And then now I'm writing. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of training wheels. All right.
No,
so what is the kindest thing that anyone has ever done for you in your writing career?
Well, gosh, I have no idea how to answer that. I'm such a solitary writer.
Well, then the next question, let's just shift it to that. What's the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Well, I think that probably the kindest thing that I did was when I walked away for a while. I was
Tell us about that.
So I at this point, I had written, I think, 9 of my own books, and I was on number 10, and I had done a draft. They wanted me to write a certain character. They wanted me to create a series based around these characters. And I live in Chicago, and I'm a judge, but I'm also around politicians a lot. And they viewed me as like the political guy from Chicago. I'm really not political, but to the New Yorkers, I was.
Mhm.
And they wanted me to write about a political fixture. So anyways, I wrote a draft that I liked, and my editor wanted me to make some substantial changes to it. And I didn't really agree with her, but I did. And then I spent about a year doing that. And then she wanted me to make more changes.
Oh.
And at this point, I've written 9 of my own books, and I've also been writing with Patterson. And I'm thinking, this rewrites, that's another year now. And I don't really think you're right. And she was nice and she was smart, but I did not agree with her. And I said, I'm going to take a break. I've got Patterson books I'm doing, and it's fun to write with Jim Patterson. It's very fun. And I had just become a judge. This is 2014. I was sworn in 2014. And I said, I'm going to get off that mill, because they're like, we need a book every year, Dave, right? Because that's what they want. And I appreciate that. They're trying to build me. I appreciate that. But I thought, what am I doing? I'm not doing something that I care about as a writer. I'm not loving what I'm doing. So I'm just going to walk, and I'm just going to get some air and think about it. That took me 8 years to do that, but and more like 6, because I started writing in 2020 during COVID. But I think that was really good for me. And I spent a lot of time with Jim, and Patterson. He'll be the first guy to say that his books are not going to win awards. But the truth is James Patterson is a brilliant man, and he knows so much about what the reader wants and about character and plot. And I learned a lot from him, and I drank all that in. It took me a while to figure out some of the things he was saying to me, but now I totally get him. And I've used a lot of him with my stuff. I've fused some of James Patterson's stuff into the new Dave Ellis, and I think it has helped me. I think it's improved me. So I think, sometimes when you're just so busy cranking stuff out, Rachel, and you're on a deadline after deadline, and it's just think of your next book and write it. It was nice to take a breather. I think that. I've never been asked that question. That's a really good question, but that is my answer. I took a breather.
Were you with Susanna at the time when you took that breather?
Yes, I was.
What? She's going to
Yes, I
listen to this
was.
because
Susanna.
what did she
Susanna
say when
was
you
so
said,
great about it?
I want to step back. I want to hear those words. What did she say?
So yeah, I mean, she said to me, look, I don't want to start ripping on my publisher. They're good people, but
Of course not.
even they
Yeah.
said, yeah, Dave's getting a little ping ponged around right now.
Yeah.
He's getting a little jerked around, and we would understand if he's really if he wants to break the contract. And I said, well, I'm not going to rip it up. I had a 2-book deal, and I'm not going to rip it up. I'm just not ready to do it right now. And she said, she's so cool. She's just like,
Susanna is
if
cool.
that's how you feel, then that's what you should do. The same thing happened, Rachel. So I told you that they wanted my next book, After Look Closer, to come out in next year. I actually submitted a manuscript to be ready to be published next June or July. And I pulled it back. I called her a week later, said, it's not ready. It's not good enough yet.
Because you knew.
And part
you
of
felt
that,
it.
to be honest with you, was the reviews I've been getting with Look Closer and all the feedback from fans and everyone saying, oh my God, what did I just read? I'm like, I have now set a standard, and I'm going to do that again and again, but I can't probably do it in the same time frame. And Susanna was so wonderful. She took all the pressure off me, and she said, you're writing for yourself, and you're writing for your readers, and you think this is what my readers want, and you want to deliver it. She said, that is everything you should be doing. And if you tell me, because you're a judge, because you have young kids, that you can't do it in a year, then it's not going to be in a year. You don't have to write a book a year. You have to write great books. And I said, oh, God bless you. And to be honest, my publisher was also great about it. They're like, okay, we respect what you think. And so they've been great. And I'm rewriting it now, and it's a challenge, but I think it's much better already. And Susanna has been my biggest supporter, and I bounce everything off her. I'm sure you do too, Rachel. She's just a wonderful person.
She knows her stuff. She
Oh my
really
God,
knows
does
her
she ever?
stuff. Yes. And
Yeah.
she will never blow smoke either. Sometimes I wish she would. Susanna,
No, she'll
don't
tell
stop
you.
being you. Yeah, she will tell you.
No, but I mean, but what good does that do, right? I always say, give me
Exactly.
your honest
Exactly.
opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
what the heck else is the point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the
Oh, that's
readers will give you
awesome.
their honest opinion, right?
Oh, yes.
Your
Oh,
readers will tell you
yes.
what they think.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so what is the best book that you have read recently, and why did you love it?
So my favorite book recently is a book called The Widowmaker.
Hmm.
It's by a new author named Hannah Morrissey. Her first book was called Hello Transcriber. It's about a police transcriber. And the second book is The Widowmaker. She's created this town that's on Lake Michigan in Wisconsin. It's called Black Harbor, and she is going to be a star. She is a nice
Mm.
person. I've met her, but more importantly, her writing is absolutely phenomenal. If you read Tana French,
Oh, I love
who
Tana.
is an
Yes.
Irish writer
Yes.
you've read her.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I'm an enormous Tana French fan. And Tana French is Irish, and she built a whole series around, well, her latest is not, but her other books have all been around the Dublin police force and what they call the murder squad, which she just invented, but who cares? Well, I think of Hannah as the Tana French of, like, mid Wisconsin,
That's
right? So
awesome.
yeah, and her writing is poetic, it's dark, it's creepy. She's really into psychological thriller stuff. Her characters are very dark, but it reads very quickly because it's so fun to read. I am a gigantic Hannah Morrissey fan.
Should
It just came out. I got an advanced copy, but her book just came out, I think, yesterday, The Widowmaker. I
should I
highly
start with
recommend it.
that one, or should I
You
start
you
with
can
the
read them out. You
transcriber
can
one?
read them I'm sorry, I'm just talking over you, but you can read them in any order. So they're both Black Harbor, but you could read The Widowmaker. You'll love it. You'll want to go back and read Hello Transcriber. They're amazing books.
Good. Thank you. What a
It's
great recommendation.
it's fun to see new authors come on the scene and make such a splash.
Yes.
And she's one of the
Yes.
sweetest people you'll ever meet. She's the most humble person. I said, if I were you, I'd be beating my chest, but she's very humble. Hannah
That's
Morrison.
great too, because I have often thought we don't really have a ton of French in that particular way in the
Yeah.
States. So I would love it if we got one and it was Hannah. So I will be checking that out. Speaking
Yeah.
of fabulous books, can you please tell us about Look Closer? Give us the log line. Tell us a little bit about what it is without giving anything away.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, so many people when reviewing it have said, I don't want to tell you the plot because everything is going to be not true that I say, so go in blind. I would recommend going in blind. I mean, basically, this book follows two characters, although there are other points of view. The characters are Simon and Vicky. They are a married couple who live outside of Chicago. They like each other a lot. They respect each other. They may or may not love each other. There is a trust fund that Simon has inherited that is coming due when they hit their 10th anniversary of being married, which is weeks away when the book begins. And what Vicky plans to do when she becomes entitled to that trust fund is certainly part of the story. There are affairs. There is a long lost love who reemerges. The book begins with a murder. The first page of the book is a murder in this suburban town, a sleepy little suburban, bedroom community that's never seen a murder before. And so I am not giving anything away because it's page one. And the book goes backwards at times and talks about how we got to this point. And it sometimes goes forward with the police investigation. I try to work those two things together. But I can tell you, Rachel, that I've just given you a little nutshell of the story, and about half of the things that I said were not true. It's almost impossible to tell the story, to give a synopsis without giving something away.
Yeah.
But I made the book. I wanted the book to be, I told you, I wanted the book to be fun. I wanted it to be fast. It's got a lot of chapters because they're short chapters. So the book looks big. And a lot of people have said this. I saw how thick it was. I was worried about it, but it's a very fast read. And I think it's a really fun ride. I hope people enjoy it.
I certainly did from page one to page end. And it was one of those things that I wish I could experience all over again. So I'm very eager for people to pick this up and experience it for
Well, you're
themselves.
very nice.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find you out there on the internet?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I think David Ellis author is my handle on Instagram. I think it's basically my handle on Facebook as well and Twitter. I'm not hard to find. DavidEllis.com is my website. And what I always say to readers is, please let me know what you think. I'd love
Yeah.
for you to post a review, but also just reach out to me. And if there's something you didn't like, I want to know it, because ultimately I'm not writing this in a vacuum. I'm writing this for you guys.
Yeah.
So please get in touch with me and let me know how you felt.
That's lovely. Thank you, David, so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. This was great.